everyone. Welcome to Here We Are, Brattleboro's community talk show. I'm Wendy O'Connell, and today on our show we have Josh Steele. Josh is the co-owner of Vintage Steele up on Canal Street in Brattleboro. He's had a lifelong love of figuring things out, and he's going to talk to us today about what he does, what he takes apart, and what he puts back together again. So, thanks, Josh, for coming on the show.
Thank you, Wendy.
Yeah.
This is awesome. Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you here.
Yeah.
I have to admit that I was over at Josh's shop the other day, and it was just mind-blowing. It was so exciting to see all of these beautiful vehicles, all of these beautiful motorcycles and their parts and different stages of development. It was, I'm not a motorcycle rider, you know, but there are things of beauty, and it was really exciting.
Definitely, when people walk into the shop, they get extremely overwhelmed instantly, you know, and you can kind of see it in them. You know, their eyes just like, you know, get really wide, and they just start looking around, and then they totally forget the question, you know, that they came in to ask, and just get, you know, like, especially people's first time coming into the shop. You know, it's an interesting thing to witness. Oh, well, because it can be overwhelming.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. Well, it is. Well, also because it's a machine shop, or I'm not even sure exactly what you would call it, but there's so many different places where you're doing different things, and it's exciting.
Machine shop is correct. You know, we're you know, a fully functioning motorcycle shop with a machine shop also. You know, so we're really lucky to have, you know, access to tons of different tools. So.
Yeah, a lot of tools. A lot of tools there. And so you guys do, you buy and sell, you trade, you repair, and you custom build.
Yeah,
you do all
everything.
Of those things.
Yeah, everything in relation to motorcycles. We don't do, you know, we're not interested in snowmobiles. We're not as interested in four-wheelers, you know, unless it's like a local farmer buddy that, you know, like they use it as a tool to, you know, work their land. We might, you know, work on a four-wheeler, but mostly it's just motorcycles. That's really all that we're interested in.
Yeah.
So.
I'm gonna back up a little bit, because I'm really interested. After I talked to you and was thinking of my questions for you, I started thinking about biking in general, and just what it was like to get your first bike, and what it, you know, for me, what it was like to have my first bike, and how exciting that was, and just for you, what was it like?
Yeah, wait, did you ride?
I rode a bike.
Oh, bicycle,
not
okay.
a motorcycle.
Okay. I was like, you didn't mention to me that you rode motorcycles.
No. I'm talking about a Huffy.
Oh,
you know?
okay, so you're asking me about my first bicycle?
Yeah, just like the experience of biking is just, when you're 8 or 9 years old, it's just so freeing.
Well, I was actually incredibly young for my first bicycle. Yeah, and I remember it specifically. I was like, you know, barely old enough to walk, and I was at the neighbor's dumpster on trash morning, and I found a bicycle in there in parts, and I took it all home, and my dad and I put it back together. We painted it blue, and then put it all back together, and that was my first bicycle. I could make up a number on how old I was. You know, I want to say like, you know, 4 years old.
Wow.
You know, and it didn't have training wheels or anything. I rode it.
Wow.
It could have been a little bit older. It could have been a little bit younger.
Yeah.
I honestly
don't
but
you were
know my
young.
age. Oh yeah, very young. Well, fascination with like machines and like how things work, you know, especially things with wheels, you know, the things that, you know, you can commute on or transport yourself on. So yeah, absolutely.
So it's being able to travel as well.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yep.
Yeah, and that feeling, you know, there's nothing like, you know, I know that a motorized bike is really different, but being able to not be enclosed in something and riding along in it is really pretty great.
Well, the obvious with bicycles, you know, is like they're under your own power, you know, human power, you know, and that's kind of a beautiful thing. Yeah. And then as you get older and maybe lazier, then you want something to power you. At least that might have been what happened to me. And that's when, you know, later in life, you know, with mopeds and scooters, my interest in machines, you know, and like, you know, at least petroleum-powered machines, then, you know, started getting a little bit greater. Yeah, so.
That was a leap, though, right? Going from a bicycle to a motor-powered machine.
Yeah, well, I actually got into motorcycling pretty late in life. You know, like if you look up Vintage Steele and see everything that we've accomplished, you know, you would kind of assume that I've been into motorcycles my entire life, which is not the case at all. Yeah. It's actually a pretty recent thing. Within like at least the past 9 years, I think either 9 or 10 years ago is when I got my motorcycle endorsement. And so the leap itself came later in life, but it did feel kind of like the natural progression of, you know, going from bicycles to motorcycles, you know, especially if you don't have any interest in cars, you know, so it's like it was just normal for me. So.
Do you remember when you first got bitten? You know, when you were first on the road, on a bike, on a motorcycle?
Well, very early on, with like dirt bikes, and
right.
then, scooters and mopeds and stuff, like the idea of being in control of a machine like that, that can take you places or take you away, is kind of the beauty of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't remember the first time. No.
None of us really remember the first time, but we think we do.
Yeah, exactly. I wish I had a story about that, but maybe tomorrow I might be like, oh, I know.
Yeah. Well, we'll try to piece it in. Yeah. Did you study with anybody? Did you work with anybody?
No. Well, yes and no. I'm essentially, I get this question a lot, and I'm essentially all self-taught when it comes to motorcycle repair, and then creating parts and making parts. But I did have the awesome opportunity of working with Stanley Line from Line Motorsports. Yeah. Probably 8 or 9 years ago. I wish I did some preparation for this show on exact years that I was doing this. I had more definitive timeline. 8 or 9 years ago, though, I was super lucky to have worked with Stanley down at his shop, and the amount of knowledge from the summer that I was there, the amount of information on how to work on bikes and how to deal with people and how to, run a motorcycle shop, is like one of the biggest educational experiences of my life, just to sit back and observe and watch that business itself.
Yeah. And Stanley himself, I mean, that's it's definitely something to talk about. He left such a legacy, and he had such an impact in this community. It was really amazing.
No, losing Stanley has been like one of the most tragic events, like in my personal life, but then like for the entire community, and also beyond just the motorcycle community, the hole that Stanley's left in this community is so big and so large, that it's going to be felt for a very long time. And so it's incredibly tragic.
And I'm assuming it wasn't just about motorcycles. He must have created some kind of a community that had such glue to it.
Yeah, well, no, if like his personality, his charisma, his character, like if you knew Stanley, like it was beyond just motorcycles. It was beyond, just like the lifestyle and the culture of motorcycles is a bigger thing than that. It's like, it's Brattleboro, it's this entire community. It's like, you're associated to Stanley somehow, whether you know it or not.
It's amazing because it's probably the tiniest little shop in town.
Oh yeah.
Literally a hole in the wall.
It's a small space.
And that's something that I thought about as well. Is there's that sort of little triangle there where you've got Dunkley's kind of across the street,
Lester,
and Lester, and that kind of work style, doesn't exist in a lot of places anymore.
No, well, like there's like Kenny from Brattleboro Sheet Metal, Lester Dunkley, and those guys, they're getting older, and the amount of knowledge, that they have in their heads, and like the amount of skills that they have, like it's incredibly hard to replace that. It's almost impossible now, just like Stanley, it's impossible to replace that, So, and I feel like some of us, us younger people, have the expectation of needing to replace that, or wanting it to be replaced, and it's almost impossible, especially with a guy like Lester Dunkley or Kenny. These are all industries that are hugely valuable to this area and necessary, and we totally take them for granted.
Until they're gone.
And then you're like, oh no, what am I going to do?
Yeah, that's right. And in terms of fabrication and getting the right kind of tool or the person to make the right kind of thing that you might need in a cycle, what do you do?
I do it myself.
You do a lot of it yourself.
Yeah, because the question's about like making a specific part. So the 5 years we've been in the space, all of our money, like the money we make, we just invest back into the business itself, which allows us to buy tools, and the difficult part about a motorcycle shop is you can always, no matter what, there's always tools to be bought, or better tools out there to replace the ones you have, just to make the job easier, just to make it cleaner, just to make it more efficient, to where it's more affordable for the customer. So when it comes to fabricating and making parts, I do a lot of that myself. If we can't order it on the internet, if it doesn't already exist or be more affordable for the customer on the internet, then I do it myself.
So that must be a huge learning curve, right?
Oh yeah. The learning curve when it comes to creating things that don't exist is massive, but because of the internet, because of YouTube, because of forums, like it's way more doable now than like
interesting.
Exactly. Like I don't understand like how Stanley, for instance, did it 30 years ago. Like obviously there's books. Like we have a huge bookshelf. We call it the library.
Yeah.
But we very rarely use those books because like there's more information online than like what a lot of those books give us. So it's like how did these people, how did the Lesters, the Stanleys, the Kennys of the world do this 30 years ago? Like it must have been so difficult. So to answer your question, it's like a lot of information for me when I'm trying to troubleshoot or like create something or design something. If I don't know how to do it and I need assistance or help, like go to the computer, and see what other people have done.
So a lot of things are really available for you online though.
Oh yeah.
A lot of resources.
Yep, there are a few things there aren't many resources, especially when you start talking about the more rare motorcycles like the Rough Superiors and like the Vincents. There are forums for those bikes, but a lot of the guys that know a lot about those bikes don't want to share the information. So it gets a little difficult for some models and makes, and years. But for the most part, everything is out there.
Yeah, I was looking at your press on your website, and I'll say more about the website later. We'll have that information at the end of the show too. But you've got an amazing press so far for having been doing it for not a very long time. So you're creating a reputation, which is building a community, and people are coming to you.
Yep, absolutely. And it blows my mind the distances that people are coming to us now to this day. And I'm like, don't you have a shop closer to you? Like we have people that for repair at least, we have people that drive 3-4 hours just for us.
Really?
We had a guy come down from the coast of Maine the other day to bring his bike to us. It's like
that's word of mouth, do you think?
Yeah, well, and our reputation online, social media, and like if you read reviews about us and everything. And it's still mind-blowing to me that there's this much of a demand for what we're doing, and that people are willing to travel these distances for us. And so that right there is the biggest compliment ever. So when it comes to the community that we're creating, it's difficult for us because of time. There's only 24 hours in the day to be able to do everything. But we're trying really, really hard to make as many people happy as possible. And like what Chris and I talk about all the time is like our one goal is just to keep motorcycles on the road. So you put all the high points and all the low points behind you and just like focus on just keeping bikes on the road. That's our mission.
That's great. You got to focus.
Yeah.
So that creates its own boundaries, which is kind of keeps you in the shop.
It keeps us our heads down grinding away.
Literally. And so Christian is the co-owner with you, and you guys formed this, what did you say, how long ago was it?
Well, so the shop we're in now, which is on Canal Street behind Lotus Graphics, we've been in there, October was our 5-year anniversary, and we started as a hobby shop out of my garage at my house 7 or 8 years ago. And my girlfriend Sarah, and I bought a house 8 or 9 years ago, and it had a detached garage. And that's how I fell in love with the house. Was the foundation was solid. There was no cracks. There's no water flowing through it. And then it had a detached garage.
You had a shop.
And I was like, this is perfect. Like where do we sign? Like will a bank give me a loan for this place? Because this is everything I could ever want. And so the detached garage was perfect to set up a tiny little hobby shop. And so I did that for like 6 months, a year, and then that's when I met Chris. And he scraped and painted the garage, and I gave him a motorcycle. And the motorcycle didn't run, and he was like, so how do I get this running? And I was like, now I got to teach him how to get it running. And so I did that.
You got a partner.
And I created a partner, and him and I have been together every single day.
Wow.
We've worked together every single day since that day, which was about probably 8 years ago.
And that's working.
So,
it's working.
We're making it work.
I was looking, as I said, I was looking through some of the press, and not only have you been covered locally and regionally, Vermont Life, and a lot of the papers, but also the Great American Country Show, Made from America Motorcycle Film Festival.
Yep.
And you mentioned something else, an invitational show that's coming up.
Yeah, well, for we've been on multiple TV shows, PBS, and then the Great American Country. We've been in a couple magazines now, and like a couple podcasts and radio shows. And then we've also been invited to like these pretty big invite-only custom hand-built motorcycle shows. A few years ago, we went to Portland, Oregon for one that's called the One Moto Show, which is like kind of our niche audience. And then the last year, we were invited to one that's called the Hand-Built Motorcycle Show in Austin, Texas. And then we were invited again this year, amazingly. Oh, wow. And so, yeah, so it's a big commitment for us. It takes a lot of time and money for us to get down there, show a bike, and then come back and get in the shop and get back to work. Yeah. But it's worth it just to stay relevant and, you know, meet people and rub elbows with other industry people. And, you know, but it's a huge compliment because both of these shows, but specifically the Hand-Built, I'm just preparing for it now. It's in Austin. It's coming up in April. It's a huge compliment to us that these folks are inviting us to the world stage, putting us up there next to these amazing bike builders. You know, some of these people that are just doing this like mind-blowing stuff. To be there with them, you know, sharing the stage with them is the best experience ever. Yeah,
like many other things that are going on, from you know, beer to distilleries and things like that, the hand-built idea is really appealing. It sounds like you're really being recognized for that, for your hand building.
Yeah, it's the craft element. It's the artistic element of it. And that's kind of the beautiful thing that's going on now. You know, 2018, a lot of people are kind of growing more of an appreciation for the craft behind making things, you know, and so like there's less and less, or seemingly less and less, you know, like buying quality goods at Walmart, you know, like that's more questionable now. And so when it comes to quality goods, understanding they're made in America, and also like buying goods from your friends, like people that you know that are making things, you know, like whether it's pottery, whether it's, you know, beer, whether it's, you know, motorcycles, you know, consuming goods locally is, you know, is the future, you know, and so fortunately for us, a lot of people are learning about that and coming to us for, you know, for what we have to offer for our services.
And the quality of the goods, of course, has to meet that. You know, that's the thing that you're being repaid for that, you know, over and over again.
The quality of the goods is one of the most difficult things ever, just because that really relies on people's budget. And so one of the things we've discovered lately is we're actually turning a lot of, like, at least for our custom builds, we're turning a few of them away just because the budget might not be there. And so it's hard for us. It's a hard conversation to have with people, you know, that really want a really cool bike that just there's not quite enough money. For us, though, we are associating our name. We're putting Vintage Steele on it, and we want everything that leaves the shop to be quality. So with that being said, it's like, you know, the budget has to align with that.
Right, you know? For it to make sense and for it to work. And so, you know, so before this, you were doing some work in the community. You were working for youth services. And going out on the streets, being a community mentor. So you've had a feel for this community for quite a number of years.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So I moved back to Brattleboro 11, maybe 12 years ago. And when I first moved back, I got a job at Turn It Up, and from Turn It Up, I had an opportunity to get my foot in the door at Youth Services, and worked there for a position called Community Mentor. Is a contract with DCF, the Department of Children and Families, and I got to work with 14 to 17-year-olds, like kids in DCF custody or on probation. So that kind of opened my eyes to Brattleboro and the community, and, you know, the needs that the community has, and, you know, kind of sparked my interest in investing in Brattleboro. So and that was the very beginning. Well, you're in your 20s then, probably, right? I'm 35 now. So 10 years ago.
First of all, it's kind of amazing to have an established business the way you do at the age of 35. That's very impressive. And the idea that, well, you moved to Brattleboro when you were 11, so you have, you know, you've got a pretty lifelong view of the community itself. And so to be there on the streets with the kids, you know, and then, as I understand it, you're also bringing some kids into the shop now to work with you.
Well, so working with youth services and DCF, you know, like one of the harshest realities that that slowly came to grips with was how I can't save the world, how nobody can. And then I also, I'm not very good at fixing humans. You know, I can fix motorcycles. But anytime I have an opportunity to help out, I try to, you know. So one of the things we do in the shop is apprenticeships or internships. And we are working with Brattleboro High School, and once in a while the middle school, they have a couple really awesome programs where they bring kids to us and they help out in the shop, you know.
That's great.
Which is like, you know, cleaning motors or sorting nuts and bolts.
Yeah.
And we also, we have a couple kids through like HCRS and youth services now that come in and help out around the shop. So it's a much more contained way for me to see if, you know, Chris and I can have some sort of impact on a young person.
Yeah.
So,
that must be a great experience.
For us, it's awesome. I'm not sure what they're getting out of it.
Oh, I would think. Well, and you have boys and girls too coming,
we haven't
right?
had any girls yet, you know. So, like, we would absolutely. We take what we're supplied.
Yeah.
So it would be cool to get some girls in there, but you know, it's been mostly boys so far.
Yeah. No, I would think it'd be pretty exciting. I mean, imagine yourself back at that age, being able to go in and sort nuts and bolts.
Oh yeah, well no, when I was in middle school, there was no option of ever going to the local motorcycle shop and helping out. That was not an option.
Was Stanley here then?
Oh yeah, no, he's been when I was in middle school. He may have been operating in Guilford, Vermont at that time.
That sounds right. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, no, he was around for how many years? 40?
30, like business at 30, but for 40 years he's been in the motorcycle industry.
Yeah. We're all aware that there's a motorcycle culture. I mean, and I think that for the person in the street, you know, we see the motorcycles coming through in the summer going to, is it Laconia?
Yep.
I know there's some
one of the events.
There are big meets coming through.
Yep.
And so I think a lot of people have, you know, certain ideas of what the motorcycle culture is.
Yep.
And from my understanding, I think that you're creating your own culture of motorcycles.
Yeah, well, we're creating and we're tagging along. You know, we're not trendsetters or anything. You know, basically we do what you're paying us to do. But we do address a different end of different segment of the motorcycle community. You know, like we're not just into Harleys, you know, but like a lot of our customers, a lot of our clients are, you know, like the BMW crowd, the Ducati crowd, you know, the Japanese market and everything, like, you know, Honda, Suzuki, Kawasaki. We do work on Harleys, even though that's not like, you know, we're not a Harley only shop. You know, and that's one of the things that people are pretty impressed by when they come in. They're usually like, well, where are all the Harleys at? You know, and it's like, you know, they're there, you know, the community that we're creating is like, kind of, it's all encompassing and all inclusive of everything, but we're also really excited about other brands.
So walking into the shop, it was just so exciting because, you know, I don't know anything about motorcycles, and I walked in and saw this huge array of these beautiful, beautiful things, you know, that were not standard Harleys, you know, the standard kind of, you know, big wheels and big bars
and A-hangers and stuff.
So you've got kind of a different culture going on.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, we participate in that lifestyle and culture and everything, but what we get really excited about too are other elements, you know, and I don't like genrifying motorcycles. I don't like labeling them. When people ask, like a lot of people like have labeled us as a cafe racer builder shop, and we're not that at all. You know, we build custom motorcycles, which you know, this year we're building our first chopper and our first bobber. But historically, in the past few years, you know, we've built a lot of scrambler style, cafe racer style. I hate using all of those terms because none of it really means anything anymore. But for the sake of conversation, it's easy to genrify these different motorcycles or styles of motorcycles. But we've built Nortons, BSAs, Triumphs, you know, Hondas, BMW. Like, we're huge BMW fans, you know, and so, you know, that's like what we get really excited about.
And so you do have affinities. You have your own affinities towards certain motorcycles for certain reasons, I would think, as well. Yeah,
you know, I try to not, you know, talk too much about that because we don't want people to be discouraged to bring their bike to us if we're just not. And for instance, Ducatis are incredibly hard to work on. You know, they're really, especially like Ducatis from like the 60s and 70s, you know. And we don't enjoy working on them, but we will. So I don't want to discourage someone from bringing their Ducati to us, you know. So I like to be careful with that.
Yeah, I can understand that. You know, the other thing too is going back to your story of being 4 or 5 years old and finding parts of a bike in a dumpster. There's still that element of adventure, right? Trying to find old bikes and putting them back together. And
exactly. Well, so finding old bikes, the hunt, the search is like super fun for us. We do a little bit less of it these days. Like a lot of bikes come to us now, which has sucked the fun out of it. Every day someone comes into the shop and is like, you guys should have the American Pickers come here. And it's like, you know, we are the American Pickers. You know, it's like kind of a response to that, because like we literally go out and we learn about, you know, cool, funky old motorcycles that exist out there, and then, you know, we literally hop in our van and go and try to haggle with people and buy them off of people. You know, that's like, you know, what we do. So I'm not interested in the American Pickers, because it's like, that's, you know, just what we're already doing.
What is American Pickers?
That TV show.
Oh, it's a TV show. No, you know, you got a
that
new
makes me
fight
so
here.
happy that you don't know that.
Yeah, I'm not in that world, gotta say. But no, well, it's sort of like the American Roadshow kind of thing, right? With antiques, the same kind of ideas. It's something mainstream when you used to have the thrill of the hunt.
Yeah, exactly.
But you are still getting the thrill of the hunt.
Yeah,
right?
and exactly. And the thrill of reviving machines that haven't run in 30 years. You know, like still to this day, no matter how stressed out Chris or I look, you know, or how, you know, how worn out we may seem, that moment when we get that bike running for the first time that it hasn't run in 30 years, you know, it's still an awesome thrill. It's still hugely rewarding.
Yeah, you push down on that, and then the engine starts.
It fires up and goes.
Yeah.
And you're like, wow, we still got it in us.
That is exciting, Do you have your secret stashes of places where you go?
We have a couple, They're sadly not becoming secret anymore, you know, but we do have a few older gentlemen that have some cool stuff, you know, hidden away. We've been doing like less motorcycle bike, not intentionally, but just the way the business has been progressing and evolving. We've been kind of doing less motorcycle buying, you know, and mostly more just building and repair.
Well, the custom building thing is just so exciting. You know, I mean, and I don't know, that blue Triumph you had there the other day was just so gorgeous. I don't know if that was custom built, but you know, with the leather seat and I mean, there's so many different parts to it, you know, that you could just admire.
Well, thanks for saying that. That is the one. That's the one where we just finished, and that's the one that was invited to the handboat show in Austin.
Oh, good. I'm glad to know I've got an eye for it.
Exactly. Well, it's that blue color. It's just amazing.
It's gorgeous. And I would really encourage people to stop by and, you know, not take these guys away from their work, because God knows here we are taking their time away from their work, but
it's all good.
But it's such an exciting place to walk into, and you just see something, you know, that you may never have quite realized was such a beautiful object, and the amount of work and craftsmanship that goes into these machines is really mind-blowing. It was really fun. I really had a good time.
Well, thank you.
And also, I'd love to mention that the website for Vintage Steele is also a really interesting site to go and visit. It's really clear. It's really well designed. The press alone is interesting. They're little video clips. You know, maybe this will be on. You know, one of your video clips.
We will definitely put a link
to this
in there.
That would be great. Good. That's always good for us. Here we are, Brattleboro, Vermont, Vintage Steele. So that information will be at the end of the show. If you want to get in touch with Josh or Chris or stop by, it is right on Canal Street. And thank you, Josh, so much for being with us.
Thank you so much, Wendy. This is awesome.
Yeah, it was really fun to have you and fun to see that world.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. Thanks to all of you for tuning in for this show. We always welcome new people coming on and commenting and letting us know how you enjoy it and who you'd like to see on as well. You can see us on Facebook and on the BCTV site. And meanwhile, we will see you next time on Here We Are.